My Govanen Melanin. Well met, my friends, and welcome back to Of Hobbits and Heaven. Today we're going to be talking about light and darkness. In the beginning of Middle-earth, the Valar needed light after Melkor retreated and his fires were put out. The Valar made two great lamps to light the world. These were destroyed by Melkor. After this, the Valar made the two trees, Telperion and Laurelin. Telperion gave a silver light, and Laurelin had a golden light. The two trees were beloved by the Valar and by the elves who lived in Valinor. Feanor, one of the elves, made the Silmarils, 3 jewels that held the light of the two trees. Even in the dark, the Silmarils shone like the stars, but in light they reflected many brilliant colors. Varda, or Elbereth, blessed the Silmarils so that no evil could touch them without suffering great pain. Melkor lusted for the Silmarils and teamed up with Ungoliant, a demon in spider form and the mother of Shelob, to destroy the trees and steal the Silmarils. Melkor and Ungoliant snuck into Valinor, with Ungoliant weaving webs of darkness around them. Melkor stabbed each tree, and Ungoliant drank their sap, withering them with her poison. Tolkien writes, "The light failed, but the darkness that followed was more than loss of light. In that hour was made a darkness that seemed not lack, but a thing with being of its own, for it was indeed made by malice out of light, and it had power to pierce the eye, and to enter heart and mind, and strangle the very will." If that sounds familiar, it's because the darkness comes from Ungoliant, and Shelob, her daughter, creates a similar darkness and dread, which is encountered by Frodo and Sam in Cirith Ungol. In a few steps, they were in utter and impenetrable dark. Not since the lightless passages of Moria had Frodo or Sam known such darkness, and if possible here it was deeper and denser. They walked, as it were, in a black vapor, wrought of veritable darkness itself, that as it was breathed, brought blindness not only to the eyes, but to the mind, so that even the memory of colors and of forms and of any light faded out of thought. Night always had been, and always would be, and night was all. After the destruction of the trees, darkness is considered evil throughout the history of Middle-earth. For example, Sauron is known as the Dark Lord, and Mordor means black land or land of shadow. Tolkien says, "Melkor began with the desire of light, but when he could not possess it for himself alone, he descended through fire and wrath into a great burning, down into darkness. And darkness he used most in his evil works upon Arda, and filled it with fear for all living things." Evil is the absence of good, just as darkness is the absence of light. John chapter 3, verse 20 says, "For everyone who does wicked things hates the light, and does not come toward the light, so that his works might not be exposed." The Valar tried to heal the trees, but failed. Feanor refused to let the Valar use his Silmarils to restore the trees, and shortly after, Melkor stole the Silmarils, even though they burned him. It was at this point that Feanor renamed Melkor Morgoth, which, recall, means dark enemy of the world. Morgoth called himself the king of the world and put the Silmarils in his crown. His hands were burned black by the Silmarils, and he was in constant pain. This was when some of the elves returned to Middle-earth to reclaim the Silmarils and establish nations for themselves to rule. Galadriel was among them. As the two trees died, Telperion gave one more silver flower, and Laurelin gave one more golden fruit. The Valar made and blessed vessels to hold the flower and the fruit, and set them in the sky. The vessel holding the flower of Telperion became the moon, and the one holding the fruit of Laurelin became the sun. The moon was finished first, and traveled the sky 7 times before the sun rose. With the rising of the sun, men awoke, and Morgoth retreated into his fortress to hide from her light. Neither of these lights had the true light of the trees. This is found only in the Silmarils. Morgoth tried and failed to attack the moon, but he didn't dare try to attack the sun. Tolkien makes the distinction that the sun and moon are not actually holy. They represent a fallen world. He says, "The two trees were slain by the enemy out of malice, and Valinor was darkened, though from them, ere they died utterly, were derived the lights of sun and moon. A marked difference here between these legends and most others is that the sun is not a divine symbol, but a second best thing, and the light of the sun, the world under the sun, become terms for a fallen world in a dislocated and imperfect vision. However, there are several instances where it seems like light from the sun, moon, or stars provides guidance or protection from evil, as if they are a link from heaven to the broken world. The first examples we see of this come from The Hobbit. The last light of Durin's Day is what illuminates the keyhole of the hidden door. This is like the finger of God piercing the rock and revealing the keyhole for the dwarves to enter. This seemingly small act led to the defeat of Smaug, which, as mentioned before, ultimately prevented the invasion of the western lands by dragons. Tolkien writes, "Then suddenly, when their hope was lowest, a red ray of the sun escaped like a finger through a rent in the cloud. A gleam of light came straight through the opening into the bay and fell on the smooth rock face. A hole appeared suddenly, about 3 feet from the ground." Additionally, Smaug's coat, as mentioned before, failed to reflect the light of the moon, allowing Bard to slay him. The moonbeam cuts through the shadows of night to illuminate the weak point. This connection continues into The Lord of the Rings. The most obvious connection is that evil creatures cannot stand the light. Gollum, corrupted by lust of the ring, tries to hide from both the sun and the moon, or the yellow face and the white face, as he calls them. Similarly, we may try to hide from God when we sin. "Day is near," Gollum whispered, as if day was something that might overhear him and spring on him. "Smeagol will stay here, I will stay here, and the yellow face won't see me." While traveling through the Dead Marshes, Tolkien writes that the hobbits can only see a passing ghost of the sun, bleared, pale, giving no color and no warmth. But even at this faint reminder of her presence, Gollum scowled and flinched. This can be compared to Frodo and Sam, who love the light of the sun, moon, and stars. Frodo says, "How beautiful the stars are, and the moon!" "They do cheer the heart, don't they?" said Sam, looking up. "Elvish they are, somehow." The orcs also weaken in the sun and travel best at night. Treebeard says, "It is a mark of evil things that came in the great darkness, that they cannot abide the sun, but Saruman's orcs can endure it, even if they hate it." The rising of the sun is often seen as a sign of hope. When the Battle of Helm's Deep looks hopeless, Gandalf appears with more riders at dawn to win the battle. There suddenly upon a ridge appeared a rider, clad in white, shining in the rising sun. Over the low hills the horns were sounding. Behind him, hastening down the long slopes, were 1,000 men on foot. Their swords were in their hands. In the same way, the Rohirrim arrive at Minas Tirith with the rising of the sun, just as the Lord of the Nazgul is entering into the gates of the city. "Old fool," the Witch King said, "old fool! This is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? Die now and curse in vain." And with that he lifted his sword, and flames ran down the blade. Gandalf did not move. And in that very moment, away behind in some courtyard of the city, a cock crowed. Shrill and clear he crowed, recking nothing of wizardry or war, welcoming only the morning that in the sky far above the shadows of death was coming with the dawn. And as if in answer, there came from far away another note. Horns, horns, horns! In dark Mindolluin's sides they dimly echoed, great horns of the north wildly blowing. Rohan had come at last. The clouds of Mordor are pushed away as the battle of the Pelennor is fought, and the Lord of the Nazgul is defeated. This scene of hope is so strong that it even affects Frodo and Sam and Mordor itself as the clouds are drawn back. As Frodo and Sam stood and gazed, the rim of light spread all along the line of the Ethel Duoth, and then they saw a shape moving at a great speed out of the west, at first only a black speck against the glimmering strip above the mountain tops, but growing until it plunged like a bolt into the dark canopy and passed high above them. As it went, it sent out a long, shrill cry, the voice of a Nazgul. But this cry no longer held any terror for them. It was a cry of woe and dismay, ill tidings for the Dark Tower. The Lord of the Ringwraiths had met his doom. "What did I tell you? Something's happening!" cried Sam. "The war's going well," said Shagrat, but Gorback, he wasn't so sure. And he was right there, too. "Things are looking up, Mr. Frodo. Haven't you got some hope now?" At the crossroads on the way to Mordor, Frodo and Sam come across a statue of an old king of Argonath, defiled by orcs, graffitied and decapitated. This signifies the apparent triumph of the Dark Lord. But as they pass by, a gleam of hope breaks through the clouds. Suddenly, caught by the level beams, Frodo saw the old king's head. It was lying rolled away by the roadside. "Look, Sam!" he cried, startled into speech. "Look! The king has got a crown again!" The eyes were hollow, and the carven beard was broken. But about the high, stern forehead there was a coronal of silver and gold. A trailing plant with flowers like small white stars had bound itself across the brows, as if in reverence for the fallen king, and in the crevices of his stony hair yellow stonecrop gleamed. "They cannot conquer forever," said Frodo. When Frodo has been captured by orcs and is imprisoned in Cirith Ungol, Sam finds a way into the tower to rescue him, but can't find him. Sam sings these verses, and Frodo responds, allowing Sam to find and rescue him. "Though here at journey's end I lie, in darkness buried deep, beyond all towers strong and high, beyond all mountains steep, above all shadows rides the sun, and stars forever dwell, I will not say the day is done, nor bid the stars farewell." Beyond the clouds of Mordor, the sun still shines brightly, and beyond sin and darkness, God is always there. That brings us to the end of this episode. God bless you. Namarie.